Did you know that in Dragon's Dogma 2 there are unique NPC dialogue options based on the makeup of your party? They even comment if you prefer the company of beastrons.
One whom I served preferred to have beastrons for allies.
And speaking of pawns, remember, these helpful followers are there to share the load, so make use of your party to carry items and treasures, because encumbrance is a thing, and it is a bad thing. However, also make sure that when moving equipment and items around that you remember this key detail. Pawns take home whatever you've equipped them with, meaning that gifting them that fancy new sword you found means that you'll be waving goodbye to it, and one thing that you need to get to grips with early on is that saves do not work as you might expect in this game. Be sure whether you want to commit, because you only get one save file and autosaves happen after nearly every dialogue or combat choice, so weigh things up before getting stuck in. And speaking of little checkpoints, let's take a breather here so I can tell you that these are just some of the incredible things that the team and I at FGS have learned after playing Dragon's Dogma 2 for over 30 hours. Alongside more Dragon's Dogma 2 coverage, we also provide daily gaming content, so make sure you subscribe to the FGS YouTube channel. And don't worry, we're not showing any story spoilers or late game content here, just in case you wanted to experience all this for yourself, which you should, by the way, because it's pretty bloody fun. There we go. Are you feeling rested? Well, you will need to get accustomed to camping if you want to get the most out of this game, because camping provides bonuses for well-rested parties, and you can cook meals at the campfire for even bigger buffs. Just make sure you've cleared out the surrounding area of enemies though, or you might get ambushed in the night. Thankfully, camping also saves your game, which is pretty great, as you may end up stumbling across a giant random monster encounter. From Cyclopses to Minotaurs, you've got to keep your wits about you at all times whilst adventuring. Remember though, that when combat is done, consider sheathing your weapons if there are friendly NPCs around, because walking around waving your weapon, especially in towns, causes people to panic and they may not interact or trade with you. They do the same when you're just smashing their boxes and possessions, so try not to be too much of a dick around them. Although saying that, remember that boxes, jars, pots, rocks, and even enemies themselves can be picked up and thrown. Not only will you get whatever loot was inside, but you can also knock over other foes and expose weak underbellies of armored enemies. Or you could just throw them off cliffs and into lakes, which actually happen to be Insta-Kills, which is a great way for cutting down the length of some battles. And if you want to take this even further, well, there's a specific vocation that allows you to launch enemies into the stratosphere, and yes, it is always a great time doing this. And speaking of time, some quests are on timers. Don't agree to too many side quests if you don't have the means to complete them all. Rewards can be lost, quest lines can be locked off, and NPCs can die if you take too long. Also, consider when starting a new adventure the time of day itself. At night, visibility drops all the way down and monsters become especially fierce. You'll even encounter special varieties and unique creatures in the dead of night, but be warned though, as they are usually the types of beast that will one-shot your party. And it also seems that time has an effect on the items that you carry. Fruit and veg will spoil, flowers will wither, and meats will age before rotting. Time it well though, and you can get some bonuses for using items at the right time. Get it wrong, and you might end up poisoning yourself. Thankfully though, if you've got a healer in the party, this shouldn't be too much of an issue. And speaking of which, always bring some form of healer. Seriously, you'll take damage in so many ways in this game, and having a pawn with a medikit pretty much always open is a literal lifesaver. In fact, let's dial in on party management right now. Having a well-rounded party is essential for the early game, as while it might be fun to run a full group of archers turning enemies into pincushions, you may struggle against armored foes, charging tanks and enemy spellcasters. Once you've unlocked more vocation skills and powered up your Arisen and main pawn, well then you can specialize into the more crazy builds. Always remember that you and your main pawn are the only characters that level up, meaning that your once well-tuned group may start to fall apart as you advance in levels. Switch up your party often to make sure that you're bringing the best solution to the table. We'd recommend looking at your party and switching things up every 5 levels or so. But don't worry though, while pawns may come and go in your party, you can always favourite a fellow adventurer and call on them from certain riftstones, meaning that a reunion party is always just around the corner. And while they can be a little, insistent, pawns do offer a great insight into the world around you, and should they ever mention a ladder or a secret area nearby,
mayhap this ladder is here for a reason.
Perhaps new discoveries await us above.
You can hit the go command and they'll scurry off to grab whatever loot they can. And if you want even more out of your main pawn, remember to set it a pawn quest. This could be traveling with an Arisen for a certain amount of time, defeating certain enemies, or finding useful items. You can set a reward for players for helping them achieve this quest, and it nets you the ability to farm hard to find items with the help of other players. Now in combat, pawns really show their worth, offering up their skills and abilities to help you take down foes, and they'll also be able to launch you up into the air and onto large creatures, and best of all, they will catch you if you fall off and you jump off of a monster towards them. Isn't that nice? You'll also get a brilliant celebratory high five or fist bump if you walk towards a pawn after a battle has just ended. It is completely pointless, but it is so very satisfying. Now, battling and adventuring isn't just exhausting in the midst of the action, but also has some long-lasting effects on your Arisen. Your maximum health bar will drain the more you're damaged or the longer you spend out adventuring without resting, so make sure you're taking breaks and letting your wounds heal. Now, fast travel is a rather expensive but supremely useful mechanic that Dragon's Dogma 2 really could highlight better. By using certain items, you're able to warp to special spots on the map. There's one warp point in every big town or city, so make sure you activate them ASAP or you'll be spending hours slogging back each time that you want to trade or upgrade.
Hey, you're finally awake.
And when upgrading your Arisen, focus on your core skills and passive skills first. They're usually cheaper than the special attacks, and it gives each class a lot of meat on the bone. Passive abilities are especially useful as you can keep these active even when switching vocations. Now, not all vocations are available from the start of the game, so keep your ear to the ground and look out for side quests that may help you unlock the necessary components. And this is something that you will want to do, as some late game classes are, well, they are absolutely brilliant as the short version. In fact, don't go into this title thinking that you need to stay in one vocation throughout your time with DD2, as switching classes is incredibly cheap and easy to do. Plus, it allows you to experience what is arguably the best thing about this game, the combat in all of its glorious forms. When heading out for another chapter of things that I'm going to stab in the face, consider what items that you need to take with you. There's no point being weighed down by unnecessary gear, upgrading components, and rotten fish, so why not drop them off at the local inn using the deposit items option? It's free and it will save you a ton of headaches. Now, the sprint button is the same as the pick up and gather one, so you will often sprint straight off a cliff when trying to pick an apple off a tree. So why not avoid this embarrassment by going into the settings, system, button mapping, and then change your sprint button to hold instead of toggle. If you're on a controller, clicking in your left stick to sprint will be set to toggle, but now, as you're gathering resources or trying to chat to an NPC, you won't be jetting off into a sprint and getting frustrated. And speaking of sprinting, remember to use your momentum to take bigger opponents off their feet. Sometimes in battle, you'll trigger a staggering animation for foes, and when this happens, leap onto the enemy or do running attacks to their legs and you'll topple the beast quickly. While it's down, clamber up to their weak points and stab until there ain't nothing left to stab. The stagger animation also comes with its own audio cue, so listen out. And there we have it, my friends. Those were 29 things that we learned from playing over 30 hours of Dragon's Dogma 2. I gotta say, I'm really enjoying this game, and while the story is a bit, well, hit or miss, the combat is absolutely brilliant, and you can be sure that we're going to be doing more coverage here on FGS. So make sure you subscribe to stay up to date. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome, my friends. Take care of yourself, and hopefully I'll see one of your pawns out there while I'm adventuring. Also, you can look out for mine. He's called Sagan, and he's based on my cat. Isn't that lovely? Anyway, speak to you soon. Bye.